two, three.
Now, in your book, Live Fit from the Inside Out, you introduce 6 shifts to living your strongest, healthiest, happiest life. Can you break down what these shifts are and how they help people to create lasting transformation?
Yes. So shifts. The word shift, before I get into it, is I go into a story in my book on why I chose that, and then and it was a story on learning how to drive and getting stuck in first gear. And so these shifts are really helping us figure out how to shift to that next gear, no matter what gear we're in. Typically, it's, getting out of first gear or just getting going in first gear and then getting into that next gear can be very, very scary. And also, where it feels very safe to stay right where you are without taking, that next step into shifting into the next year, because maybe we feel like, something might happen. I was at the light trying to get on to a freeway right when I was learning how to drive a standard, and I kept stalling and it was very scary. And so those are the things that, thinking about how we approach just fitness and wellness. So taking the word shifts, each letter stands for something. And
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Nicole Zapoli. Nicole is a fitness and wellness coach, and we're going to be talking today on the topic Live Fit from the Inside Out, the secret to lifelong wellness. Welcome, Nicole.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yes, fitness is very important. So I'm glad that we are going to be getting into fitness as a lifelong goal. All right, so let me give you guys a brief introduction. Nicole Zapoli is a professional fitness and wellness coach, owner of NZ Fitness, and author of Live Fit from the Inside Out, the 6 shifts to living your strongest, healthiest, and happiest life. With over 25 years of experience, a pro card in natural bodybuilding, figure and sports model, and ranking among the top 5% CrossFit Games open athletes, Nicole is a leading expert in holistic wellness, having trained thousands globally. Her turning point came when, at 14, training at the U.S. Olympic Training Center, she witnessed peers struggling with eating disorders, which profoundly shifted her mission to help people live healthier, happier lives beyond competition. Throughout her journey, Nicole developed a unique approach to help athletes, busy parents, and professionals achieve lifelong wellness through what she calls the SHIFT framework. Awesome. All right. So, Nicole, you have openly shared that as a single mom and gym owner, you battled anxiety and imposter syndrome. What was the mindset shift that helped you overcome those struggles and develop unshakable self-control?
Gosh, it was a culmination of many things across many years. And a huge bit of that was just the foundation of fitness and wellness in my life and my background in that. And so when I was experiencing more anxiety during a certain period of my time, period of time, I was able to lean into my foundation in fitness, in wellness, and the things that had gotten me all the way to where I was. And so just focusing on simple daily habits across the board, focusing on things that are not maybe don't seem like they would make that big of a difference in the long run, but they are the building blocks and the foundation of what pretty much carried me through and saved my life for the most part, and then allowed me to thrive and grow and continue to move forward in all areas.
Okay, that's good. So, what were you doing at 14 in the Olympics? Because I know you're into, bodybuilding right now and things like that. Well, what was your sport at 14 or 8, I should say?
Yeah. So I grew up I started in artistic gymnastics, and that's the sport that you think of when you probably hear gymnastics with tumbling, floor, bars, vault, beam. And I started in that, and around middle school switched to rhythmic gymnastics. And so I had several friends that I had grown up competing alongside in artistic gymnastics, and we had a pretty high level um, team in Houston where I lived at the time, and they were trying out this sport called rhythmic gymnastics that nobody had ever heard of. And so decided to try it out. It was so much fun and took every bit of foundation that I had from artistic gymnastics and was able to apply it towards rhythmic gymnastics. And that is what I initially went on to the Olympic Training Center for.
Yeah, those are beautiful. I love watching that. Yeah, gymnastics is I see you've got the frame and the body for it. But yeah, gymnastics is yeah, I mean, I can see the transition to bodybuilding because you have to be strong to do gymnastics. You've got to be able to hold your weight and carry your weight and all these different things, your body weight. So that's amazing. So, but you also transitioned to eating disorders. Now, I have here that when you were training at just 8 years old, you witnessed athletes at the Olympic Training Center struggling with eating disorders. So, how did that moment shift your lifelong mission around health and fitness?
Yeah, so when I was 8, I definitely knew I was wanting to open a gym, be a gym owner, coach when I grew up. I knew I wanted to do something in the world of fitness and helping people mostly in the sport of gymnastics, but in fitness in general. As I got older in rhythmic gymnastics and I was at the Olympic Training Center, I did witness friends of mine that were struggling with eating disorders, and it really affected me and um, broke my heart. And it was something that also at the same time spurred me on to taking action and figuring out what I could do to hopefully help people so they don't have to go through the same things. And the biggest piece to that was when I was at the training center, they required us to go to nutrition courses. And so that alongside training, fitness training, and being strong, mobile, all of the different pieces that built a strong, healthy body was also a huge piece to that was also nutrition and learning about that and how nutrition supports your overall well-being was huge, and it really clicked. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to do something in nutrition and fitness, helping people live their strongest, healthiest, happiest lives.
That's perfect. So, what were the were they struggling with? Were they struggling with like binge eating and then purging, or were they struggling with because we know that we have to, as a gymnast, you have to be a certain weight. So were they when you talk about eating disorders, what kind of eating disorders were they not eating? Were they overeating? What were exactly were they was happening?
So the yeah, so much of it was anorexia. Uh, a lot of times anorexia is, there's bulimia alongside that. And so some were dealing with both. Some were dealing with just not eating enough and really structured. So they would maybe allow themselves to have 4 crackers in the morning or half an apple at lunch. And then maybe 5 pretzels or a handful of pretzels in the evening. And that was the extent of how much they were, allowing themselves to eat. But it was very regimented and very there was some level of organization around it. And so it was this level of having that control over their own nutrition, yet um it was pretty extreme in that way in some cases. And one, I just remember seeing someone, a friend of mine, she I don't know, but she was on the floor in the bathroom shaking, and I don't think she saw me, but it scared me, and I was very concerned. And um and then I had experienced someone else that had collapsed from just not having enough energy in the middle of training. And so that was really eye-opening and life-changing too, mentally, for me, as I move forward on my path, um and wanting to help people in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can just imagine that if you have, I mean, they're probably weighing in like a boxer. You've got to weigh in and you've got to keep your weight down because you're in gymnastics, you got to small, and you're thinking that you've got to eat this small amount of calories, and that's why you're saying it's regimented. But I don't even hear protein in there, and you need muscles. So, I mean, we're probably going to get into that later, but I'm sure that's one of the things that you started working with your clients with, that maybe you can eat healthy and still keep the calories down, right? Was that
Oh,
was that was your intro into it? Right.
yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I could talk so. Right. So for someone that's listening right now, and maybe they're not a gymnast or an athlete, but I've heard, I have heard people talk about the fact that they ate a yogurt and they ran around the parking lot trying to work that off because they were so focused on the calories. So there's a lot of people that are focused on that. So what would be what would be something that you would tell them? Let's say that you was, a fly on the wall of those 14-year-old gymnasts that wanted to keep their body weight down but eat healthy. What would you tell them to eat?
Yeah, protein. Protein, and make sure they're getting enough water as well. So water and protein, top priority. And then, of course, complex carbs are also very important alongside your protein because it allows your body to absorb it and put it to use that much quicker and more efficiently. Um, and just making sure that you're getting in enough food to support what it is that you are doing. And, it's very tough to, I think, depending on how we grew up and the mindset and the whole, approach to just eating in general, and the emotions around food and all of that is so can definitely lead us in many different directions. So the earlier the better, but at any point in life we can, we have the power to change that and to turn that around. And then begin to approach just overall nutrition and fitness in a very healthy way that supports us rather than holds us back or makes us feel restricted in any part of our life. And if we're not feeding ourselves enough food, or we're feeling like we have to run around the parking lot to burn off yogurt. um,
Yeah.
that's not living a life of freedom and or happiness. That just doesn't, that doesn't fit that. Um, Huge piece of, I think, what most people want in life is, they want to, I don't know anyone that doesn't want to live and have that freedom in their own life, in their own movement, in their own mental emotional state, in their ability of approaching each day with living strong, healthy, happy. And so taking the focus as we get older and even as we're younger, laying the foundation for especially young gymnasts. But as we get older and, if depending on what our background is, if that, you know, whatever that looked like for us growing up, as we get older, taking the mindset and approaching nutrition as this is our fuel and this is what is going to allow us to do the things that we want to do in life. And then what we do as far as fitness, taking the focus off of, not necessarily, it's not a bad thing, of course, to want to, be able to wear something that, on a special occasion or and feel good in your body. But the biggest thing I think that really makes a huge difference is taking the focus off of the aesthetics so much and putting it on what our bodies can do and maybe how much weight we can lift, maybe what skill we're working towards and how we're building strength to be able to do that, or maybe flexibility to be able to do fill in the blank, whatever that looks like for each person. But taking the focus on and putting it more on what it is that we're able to do and just the gift that is in general of being healthy and being able to live, strong um, and then the aesthetics piece to that, losing body fat, building muscle, and just feeling good in your own body when you are building strength, when you're able to deadlift maybe 5 more pounds than you were able to a month prior, and you start to see that you're getting stronger and you're able to do things that you never thought that you maybe could have or would have ever been able to do, then you start to develop a respect for yourself in a completely new way that is really the biggest piece to it is that respect that you gain and you really earn through that. You start to really appreciate your body as you are, and then the aesthetics, of course, is also a great side effect to building strength and getting fit and eating well and fueling your body properly, but that becomes the not the main focus. And so then we have this really healthy approach um, to each day rather than it being so mind consuming of, oh my gosh, I just ate this and I still have so much weight that I want to lose.
Lose, right, right. Yeah, yeah. That is true. I like what you say about the freedom, right? The freedom to live a life that's not, like, yeah, you're in a prison if you're thinking that. And you talked about anorexia because yeah, when you have this bad relationship with food that you think that everything that you eat is going to make you fat, that's when that comes. But yes, if you were into fitness and you're a gymnast and you're, you know, you know, doing weights, then you're gonna see, the muscle build. And I love the fact that you said, yeah, that you're gonna see something like you're here thinking about, gymnasts. No, you're a rhythmic gymnast, but the gymnast that needs a lot of strength is the ones that are doing the vault, and maybe they can do the vault better, and they can do a whole bunch of things better. So that's amazing that we set the foundation for that. Now, in your book, Live Fit from the Inside Out, you introduce 6 shifts to living your strongest, healthiest, happiest life. Can you break down what these shifts are and how they help people to create lasting transformation?
Yes. So shifts. The word shift, before I get into it, is I go into a story in my book on why I chose that, and then and it was a story on learning how to drive and getting stuck in first gear. And so these shifts are really helping us figure out how to shift to that next gear, no matter what gear we're in. Typically, it's, getting out of first gear or just getting going in first gear and then getting into that next gear. Can be very, very scary. And also where it feels very safe to stay right where you are without taking, that next step into shifting into the next year, because maybe we feel like, something might happen. I was at the light trying to get on to a freeway right when I was learning how to drive a standard, and I kept stalling and it was very scary. And so those are the things that, thinking about how we approach just fitness and wellness. So taking the word shifts, each letter stands for something. And the very first one is sleep. The next is hydration. The next is I is for intake or nutrition. And then F is for fitness. T is for thoughts or mindset. And then the S at the end is for sunshine, getting out into the sunshine. So each of these I break down, and um, the idea is that these 6 shifts are part of our daily life, and we continue to build on them throughout our entire life, which leads us to living a very full, long-term life of longevity, high quality life. And it's really about focusing on super simple things that we a lot of times don't really think too much about. And so I break it down and share different approaches, different ways of tackling these. And then also, depending on the different daily habits that maybe we do better in some areas, maybe we're, have a harder time in others. And so figuring out ways to set yourself up for success. I have basically my entire coaching approach to how to implement this into your life. And so it lays the structure and the foundation to those 6 shifts and how we build on it, no matter where we're at in our fitness and wellness journey. You could be a, former professional athlete, maybe current professional athlete, maybe transitioning out of the military, maybe you've never done any fitness in your life or stepped into a gym before. And it is really for any person at any point along their journey to shift into that next year and figure out how to continue to move forward with courage and a solid foundation.
Yeah, that's great. I love because I mean, a lot of people don't know how to drive a stick shift, but I understand totally where you're talking about getting on the freeway and stalling. I mean, I spent about half an hour at a stop sign because it was on a slight hill, and I couldn't shift out and do the clutch at the same time to make the car go. So I understand. But your first S is sleep. So that doesn't sound like first gear to me. Can you can you give a little bit more example about how we're shifting from, first gear to second gear to third gear to fourth gear? And even if we're in fourth gear, we want to go to fifth gear. How does that work? I mean, how does the shifts? And I love the mindset piece. To me, that would be the first part. But obviously, we're going by the acronyms. But yeah, mindset to me is the foundation. So explain how we're shifting gears with this. Mhm.
Oh, and the whole idea behind the shifting gears, when we get more and more practice shifting gears, shifting to higher gear, maybe shifting all the way up to 5th gear, we're not going to be able to stay in 5th gear forever, right? We were going to have to shift back, maybe down to 3rd, maybe 2nd, and then back into 1st, back into neutral, back, and we learn how to move more smoothly and more efficiently through those gears and not get stuck anywhere along the way. Um, and then it just becomes second nature. We're not really thinking about what we're having to do. We already know how to do it and we have confidence doing it. And so that's kind of the approach to this. And what I want to give people is first the hope and also the confidence. To be able to implement these things. So the idea is here with the order of the shifts, they're in no particular order. Everybody's in a different place at each of these. My most challenging one for sure is sleep. Not that I don't, I once I'm when I finally make myself go to bed, I am like can fall asleep in 2 seconds. But it's the actual making sure that I'm keeping a consistent bedtime routine and going to bed to make sure that I am getting the maximum amount of sleep that I possibly can and the quality of sleep that I can get in as consistently as possible across the way. I will continue to do and work and do things all the way, until I am way past my bedtime. So that is the one thing that I have to be very aware of in my own life and just keep, boundaries up and around. Stuff like hydration, maybe that's the first place that you're going to want to look at and really focusing on making sure that you're getting in enough water during the day, or even just focusing on getting the minimum amount of water that you need each day. And doing that consistently. Fitness, maybe it's, making sure that you're getting in your a consistent training session or even just a walk outside consistently across each day. And however, this is gonna look super different for each person. Maybe someone's overtraining. Maybe someone is going too hard too often and not taking enough rest days, or maybe not getting in an active rest or active recovery day. And so taking a look at those things and making sure that we're training intentionally and intelligently and not creating more issues for our body along the way. We want to be feeling, fully recovered and able to continue to build from session to session. Maybe not fully recovered from session to session, but you want to be able to allow yourself to have that ample recovery time. And then, the biggest thing here, I think, is the mindset. And that really is across the board. We could say that about all of these things, but I definitely think mindset is super powerful. And the way that we approach all of this is very much, it starts with our mindset. And that is something that we continue to grow over time, and we get better at the inner voice and being able to channel productive thoughts and actions into our life, starting with that mindset. And a lot of it definitely comes through fitness, and fitness is a great way to train your mindset in those, whatever it is that you're doing that's uncomfortable, making yourself doing something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone or maybe uncomfortable, maybe something that you wouldn't do on your own unless you were working with a coach. And so something that is pushing you a little bit more than what you might be doing on your own is, that's also really training your mental capacity and how you're approaching other tough challenges in your life and obstacles, things that we maybe look at as obstacles, but that we can start to look at as opportunities, like in a tough workout, thinking, oh man, this is so hard, I don't think I can finish it. Or why am I doing this? This really hurts, or this is not pleasant. But then reminding yourself, this is my opportunity to get stronger and to get fitter. And this is, I'm going to be, you know, that much stronger tomorrow just by showing up today. So all of those things we carry into other areas of our life, and so the biggest thing I think is mindset. Sunshine is super helpful with
Yeah. Some people only get it a couple months a year. I'm in Florida, so I get it 12 months, but
oh, nice. Yeah. Where in Florida? Where in Florida are you?
4 miles.
Cool.
Yes, yes. So great. But that's great. But that's what I thought. But, I know that mindset because it's the operating system and it's in our foundation. But you also gave me a couple of new ways about mindset just now because yes, I mean, and that's probably because you're into the bodybuilding. The bodybuilding, you've got to like if you're doing a set of 10 or something, when you get to 8, you're going to want to stop because it hurts so much. But then you've got to push yourself to get to the other 2. And if you've got a coach, that coach is going to say, "Come on, you can do it." If you don't have a coach, you'll probably stop. So that's great. And when you do it, you're building that mindset. You're telling your body that, yeah, I can do it. And then you're right. When something hard that has not to do with fitness comes around, you're mentally tough. And I never thought about the fitness mindset portion before until you mentioned that. So that was great. And of course, yeah, I see what you mean about the sleep. A lot of people, for instance, I was talking to my son-in-law the other day. He's going to bed at 2 o'clock, and I'm saying, hey, you know what? Your body repairs between 10 and 2. And if you keep going to bed at 2 o'clock, then you're going to get sick. Things like that. You know it, that you've got to have the proper amount of sleep. And then when you're sleeping, you have to have, REM sleep and you have to have deep sleep. And, I'm not wearing my Fitbit now, but I wear my Fitbit 24 hours a day and I'm checking for all those things. And of course, the hydration, you didn't say how many water you should drink, but it's a lot and most people don't get there.
Yeah, yes, the water is very, very important, and that you want to, at minimum, want to be getting in half your body weight in pounds.
Everybody does that. Maybe the people in the Olympics do. But yeah, when I heard that number before, I read Tom Brady's book, and that's what he was talking about. Yes, yeah, it's like 8 glasses or something. So yeah, I know. But at least if you're drinking at least half of what you're supposed to drink, it's good. But some people don't even drink a glass of water. But yeah, hydration is very, very important. Now, you also talk about something that is basic and that most people overlook. So, what is the biggest result that can come from mastering small, consistent shifts and something as basic that people would we know that if we're going to use the driving analogy, getting from stop into first gear is the hardest thing to do. And after you get into first, you're moving. So you're going to move along, third and fourth and fifth is very easy, right? So what is the basic thing that people can do to propel them from stop to start?
Yes. The very first thing I have my clients do, and what I talk about in the book, is starting with 1 to 2 daily habits. I pick them in the resources that I put together an entire shifts tracker. But you really, I mean, you can do it on your own and decide on your own. That is just a guide for you. And but I typically have people choose 1 to 2 new daily habits. So maybe that's starting with water and focusing on getting in half the amount of water that they want to be getting in by lunchtime, and then finishing the other half by dinner time. And and starting with that and sticking with that for about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe adding a second daily habit in, a new daily habit. So maybe they don't have any fitness routine happening or it's very inconsistent. So starting with even just 10 minutes of walking, getting outside, showing up for those 10 minutes each day, and just focusing on that. Maybe it's focusing on water and protein. So getting in 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight each day. This is, probably the biggest thing that we want to be looking at in nutrition as far as just the intake portion of this. And that can be almost can be overwhelming for some people, especially if they're not getting much in to begin with. And so figuring out how to break that down into small meals throughout the day and making sure they're getting in their adequate amount of protein and doing that on a consistent basis and just getting that down. So that becomes a habit and they're not really having to think about it as much, and they can smoothly shift into the next gear of maybe adding in their water intake, or maybe that 10-minute walk, or maybe an hour session with a coach or trainer, or 30-minute session, whatever that looks like. But they're, choosing just 1 to 2 at a time to focus on, feel really confident and comfortable with doing that and implementing it across 2 to 3 weeks. And then they get to add a new daily habit.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a perfect answer to go from stop to moving along. Right. Yeah. You give them something, small bites, right? Yes. And of course it's basic. Water and protein. The protein is another thing that I remember when I was at my health coach, he was talking about that. You need to get 170 grams of protein or something a day. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't understand how important protein is, and they don't understand how important water is. So those are perfect things to just get started with. You're not telling them that they gotta go and do get to their VO2 max.
Yeah.
Right, or something like that, right? That, maybe that's in fifth gear or something, but that's beautiful. It's something that everybody can do. Right. So amazing. And I like the fact that you're coaching in your book and also you have clients. So before we get to the book, I have a question here about fat diets. You know, you've seen firsthand why people fall victim to unsustainable fitness trends and fat diets. From your experience coaching thousands, how can we break the cycle of fad dieting? I mean, because it's very bad for us, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like stalling into the first gear, right? You just
Yeah.
keep pulling it back.
Exactly. Dieting, the word diet, I don't even prefer to use, but more of looking at food. Food should be an enjoyable thing, and it should also be something that we're looking at as a way to fuel our life, and it gives us energy. It allows us to do the things that we want to do and do them with more energy and, more emotional and hormonal regulation. The support that nutrition gives us throughout our life and throughout our day is just so important. So the idea behind fad diets and kind of shifting your mental, I guess, mindset around nutrition in general, food, is looking at it as it's fuel. There are ways to keep it very simple. It does not have to be a complicated thing. Although that also doesn't mean that it's easy, especially in the beginning, to kind of shift the mindset behind it, especially if there's a lot of emotion around food in general. And so to kind of stepping back and looking at food as a tool that we use in our life to help get us to where we want to go, and looking at it as how are we going to use food to help support us in what it is that, how we want to live? How do we want to live our day-to-day life? What are the things we want to be able to accomplish 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now? And it all really starts with fueling our body properly. And that really does start with hydration and protein.
Yes, of course, right.
But yeah, looking at it as that, um, if you really just broke down how much protein you needed and portioned out 4 to 5 small meals during the day with equal amounts of protein, complex carbs, sweet potato, whole food. So something that you enjoy eating, fresh vegetables from your garden, whatever that looks like. And then your protein, your source of protein can be really, it's up to you. But as long as you're getting in that adequate amount throughout the day. And that's that right there is a great place to start. And, if you can do that and do that consistently, you're going to see amazing results. And that's something you can do for the rest of your life. The other thing I do talk about too is allowing yourself, and this, of course, depends on each person's goals. So if someone's training specifically for bodybuilding, probably not during season, but for life in general of just living a strong, healthy, happy life with sustainable nutrition across the board, allowing yourself a treat meal once or twice a week that is either planned on your active recovery or rest days is super helpful. It gives you, something to kind of look forward to. You can plan it out, and it's a special meal that you get to eat during the week that you're going to be a lot less inclined to, go grab something, that
Yeah, it satisfies the cravings. Right, right. Yes. I've heard about that, right?
yeah.
Yes.
And then meal prep, and that's like such a it if you have even just an hour or two to just batch prep food at some point during the week, and then just have your stuff ready to go, and then it really saves a lot of time during the week and a lot of just all sorts of um stuff that can come up during the week where, if we're out doing stuff and you need to be able to have food ready, or that would be a lot less likely for you to have to go grab something that you wouldn't normally eat. Um, but having that prepped out, ready to go, it just is super helpful. And then, it's just it's simple, sustainable nutrition. There's not anything that, it's not like you're going to be doing some, I don't know. I've heard a lot of crazy stuff.
I know there's a lot of crazy stories, and you're right. When you're hungry too, you're gonna grab something that's not nutritious or good for you. But yeah, what I'm getting across from you is because you you've been training for the Olympics, and you've had this disciplined life that it shows up in your discipline for fitness, and it shows up in your daily routines because yeah, what you're sharing is how we can be, have a disciplined life, because it's always better for you when you're not living in chaos and you have things planned out, like you talk about prepping your, understanding what your goal is, and piecing it out during the day. And I love the fact that yeah, that I drink most of my water in the first half of my day. Maybe I should start, adding some at the end of the day too. So, things like that. It's great advice. You plan it out, you're conscious of it. You live with awareness. All right. So tell us about your book, Live Fit from the Inside Out. Why did you write it? And what do you want readers to walk away with after reading?
Yes, this is my book.
Very nice.
I really wrote this. I mean, it was a lifelong goal of mine, and I got to a few years ago or several years ago, I had the opportunity to be a co-author on another fitness book. And so that was something that was just a personal goal, professional goal of mine. But more than anything, I wanted to be able to uh, give the gift of hope, and the ability to just that freedom and ability to live the life that you want to be able to live. We all have it in us, and we can, but a lot of that comes with just being able to shift from neutral into first gear, and knowing how to do that, and setting ourselves up with the best support possible around us. And sometimes, depending on what we're going through, or what we're in, or what our background is, or what is happening currently, we can get really stuck, and we can get stuck in that first gear, even stuck in neutral and not going anywhere, and almost paralyzed with either fear, or just the what ifs, or feeling like we're not good enough. And so this book kind of tackles all of those things, and from my own experiences, from my clients' experiences, different things and challenges that each of us have overcome. The one thing I did, another story in the book, and in one of the chapters, is on self-confidence for self-worth. And, why does that even matter in a fitness and wellness book? And it's just such it's the foundation of, living fit and healthy. And so getting this right, and here too, is it's all connected, and that's really our foundation. And so taking a look at our self-worth, and then figuring out what the difference between that and our self-confidence is. I talk about my truck again, of the truck I was learning to drive a standard on. And this was an old truck that, was salvaged, that my dad had salvaged, and he had been working on, and it had the paint job was very dull. And, it would have been very easy for me to have gone and, gotten it repainted, or just not even done anything about it.
Mm.
But one of my neighbors showed me a way that I could break through that film, and that oxidized, film that was on the top of my paint on my truck. And it was very tough, but I worked in little tiny sections, and it was a lot of 2 full days of just wax on, wax off, of removing this film and really uncovering the shine. And so that's one of the stories I tell about. But really, I mean, I it looked like it had a brand new paint job, but it was already there. And this truck that looked dull and kind of old, and nothing really,
Almost like the golden Buddha story. Nothing much, but yes.
yeah. And so just that satisfaction of, it was not easy to remove that top layer, but getting down underneath all of that, and just kind of uncovering the shine. That was such a it was really cool experience in my own life, of the I guess, how we approach life in general, but are taking care of ourselves as well. And, there's a lot of things that we can do to the outside to help, make us
Color of shine.
yeah. And then, but when we really tackle, and working on kind of breaking through that top layer of whatever it is, self-doubt, or, feeling not good enough, or past traumas, or stuff that holds us back. And when we start to really work on those things and take action in our own life, it's not easy, and it does take work. But when you do that, and you put that work in, oh my gosh, the shine that comes through that and what you uncover through that. And you discover that that was already there underneath.
It's already there. Yes. We're born with it all. You just have to uncover it. Amazing. All right. Well, your book sounds amazing. Yeah, I can tell that from your experience in life and how you live your life. And, we are all the testimony. So if we've learned something, we've mastered something, then it's great to share it and help others. So I know your book is on Amazon. Let us know if you have a website, anything about your coaching program, your social media handles, so people can follow you.
Yes, my book is on Amazon. It is also about to launch on Audible as well. And so there's a Kindle paperback hardcover, and then it is on my website as well. My website is NicoleZapoli.com. And then I am on Instagram as well, and it's just my name at Nicole Zapoli.
Okay. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. I do one-on-one remote coaching, and I have several different nutrition and fitness resources, different online products to help support your goals, whether that's working one-on-one with me, remotely, or I have a body composition and nutrition app, which is super super cool. Just launched recently as well, and a lot of helpful support in that area as well.
Sounds great. So you're gonna send me the links to the app so I can put it in the show page, or you want to mention it here?
It's all on my website.
Oh, it's on their website. Okay. All right.
But I'll send you the links too.
Yeah, so I could put it in the show page. That's amazing. All right. Well, Nicole, this was a fantastic conversation. I got a few little nuggets from you regarding the shifting. And yeah, that was great. And because I also learned to drive at stick shift, I can relate and I can understand. So and then of course being a mindset coach, I also understand about having the right mindset. And when you're coming from a fitness if you're a um especially if you're you were in a high level, like we're fitness for your country and Olympics or those type of high level sports, you've got the fitness mindset that you've been building. You talked about since you were 8. So yeah, it's great to help people to understand. You use the word consistency a lot. You do things consistent, you plan it out, and then you'll see the difference in your life. So that's amazing. So I will have a short summary of my conversation with Nicole on the show page, which is myrnayoung.com. And I will link out to her book. I will link out to her website and her app so that you can go ahead and yeah, get some of her knowledge and you know um uh, and work with it. I mean, I love her getting from neutral to first gear, where you pick two things. And, we discussed water and protein, but it can be something else for you. Two things like getting to bed on time, right? Or getting up on time, whatever it is for you. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's customizable. So, Nicole, it's been a pleasure talking to you. So as we wrap up, do you have any last words?
Um, Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. And it was, great talking to you, and picking up some nuggets for myself. So, all right, guys, well, listen, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. Today, we were talking about living fit from the inside out. Nicole ended with the story about getting to shine. That's already there. So yeah, if you live fit from the inside out, you're going to uncover your shine. Great metaphor. All right. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.